right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here. As always, I want to note a few things before we jump to questions, and as always, we'll start where the city is this morning with violence. Homicides are down 19.2%. Shootings are down 10%, carjackings are down 21%, and we've removed over 2,500 guns from our communities this year, an 8% increase from last year. And we know that we still have a long way to go, but we will continue to do that work each and every day to make Baltimore a safer city. First and foremost, I know that following some reporting earlier this week, there are likely to be a lot of questions about lead and copper pipes. It's fitting that we're here on the 2-year anniversary of the bipartisan infrastructure law, which has been a game changer for Baltimore. A little more than a year ago, a new federal rule came down outlining the requirement that all jurisdictions, and I'll say that again, that all jurisdictions and their water utilities complete an inventory of all water service pipe materials in the effort to support the goal of replacing every single remaining live pipe in the country within a decade. As soon as the federal guidance came down, we immediately began examining what it would mean for Baltimore and our county partners. As many of you know, for decades, our city has spent significant time, energy, and resources to address remaining lead pipes throughout Baltimore. This requirement takes those efforts to a whole new level and step. Typically, we've only been focused on the public service lines, not the private lines feeding private residences and buildings. It is extremely important to note that every jurisdiction in the country is going through this process, especially cities like ours that has a historic system where there are a lot of unknowns. Right now, there are no known or confirmed lead service lines in Baltimore City or Baltimore County, and the drinking water quality consistently meets state and federal standards. We want to make sure that we know to be true of every single pipe throughout the system. For those of you who've seen the map or utilized the online tool to look up your own home and seen those blue dots, this does not mean that those service lines are in fact lead. It simply means that it is unaccounted for, which is exactly what this effort is designed to take care of. Because we will be asking residents to do the initial testing and reporting, we know that there are going to be lots of questions, concerns, and curiosity about how this is going to work. Between now and the federal deadline in October of 2024, our team, in partnership with Baltimore County, is going to be conducting significant public outreach directly to our residents. Everything from engaging with members of the media, like we're doing this morning, joining community association meetings, and holding public sessions to answer your questions, PSAs, and even demonstrations on how to do your tests at home, and even going door to door canvassing neighborhoods. This nationwide effort is about closing a knowledge and data gap that has persisted for decades in nearly all of our communities to ensure the safety of residents and to be able to pinpoint any remaining problem areas that may exist anywhere in the system and move very swiftly to address them. You can all stay up to date as we move through this process together by visiting publicworks.baltimorecity.gov. Again, that's publicworks.baltimorecity.gov. Next, as you may know, at the beginning of this year, we launched a program called Clean Core. We're sought to engage our residents in getting involved in cleaning up their own communities and adding another tool for us to utilize to tackle issues like illegal dumping and littering. We were able to allocate $14.7 million of ARPA funding to bring together a DPW, Housing and Community Development, the Office of Employment Development, Planning, the Mayor's Office Recovery Program to conceptualize and deploy the Clean Course Demonstration Project. Through this project, we have allocated grants to 5 community-based organizations throughout the city to hire, train, and supervise Baltimore residents as they prioritize the cleanliness of 16 underinvested in neighborhoods. Almost 1 year into this program, and I am proud to say that Clean Court work on the 4 main goals have been incredibly successful. Those goals were making Baltimore cleaner by decreasing the amount of trash, litter, and other waste, help DPW build capacity for future staffing, empowering and equipping underinvested in communities that they are able to address their own concerns about trash and unmaintained vacant lots, and providing job opportunities for Baltimore City residents. To date, Clean Course have removed 400 tons of trash, completed 1,700 vacant lot cleaning and mowing services, cleaned over 2,700 alleyways, and emptied over 1,000 public trash cans. We want all of our residents are able to see this incredible progress, to get to know the work that is being done daily and stay up to date. Like many of our projects, tracking the data of these efforts is incredibly important to me. Today, we're announcing that we have launched a Clean Core dashboard when you can see the before and after photos of the work completed by the crews. This dashboard can be accessed at planning.baltimorecity.gov. And obviously, it's on this picture on the screen to your left. Clean Core has been a fantastic effort, and we want to make sure that they are certainly getting the recognition that they deserve. Lastly, before we jump into questions and this week's BOE, I want to note that Clean Core is not the only one hitting their goals. Today is exactly one halfway point of the Fall Sprints Initiative, and so far at the beginning of this week, DOT has already exceeded their goal, doing 130 speed bumps with their initial goal of 90. DOT has removed 483 abandoned vehicles out of their goal of 900, and DPW has done more than 29,800 rat abatement inspections out of their goal of 36,000. We're going to subtract 2 from that because I did 2 myself, and BCRP has addressed 621 tree wells out of a goal of 800. They will continue pushing until the very end of the 90 days we outlined, but they are clearly well on their way to blowing through their goals, and I wanted to make note and thank our hardworking women and men that work for the city of Baltimore for what they do, not just for the sprints, but each and every day on behalf of the Baltimore City. Thank you.
Let's jump to questions. Start WB.
First off, thank you for answering a lot of my questions off the top. Two-part question. When will DPW put out a press release outlining a lot of this, and when will they actually send out notices to residents who may have a blue dot?
Thank you, Richard Lina, Interim Director, Department of Public Works. So we're finalizing that press announcement right now with our colleagues and partners, especially with our partners over in Baltimore County. And we're working with a consultant agency that's helping us with all the robust outreach efforts that the mayor offered and outlined. What you'll see over the next course of days and weeks ahead is more communication from our department and agency about the lead and copper provisions, the inventory collection process, and then instructions for residents on how to collect that information.
And just a quick follow-up. So for the residents who aren't willing to check their pipes or are unable to find them because they're underground, what's DPW's plan for after that?
Yeah, so we recognize there's going to be challenges with, especially with an older housing stock and inventory here in Baltimore City. So we're doing everything we can and learning best practices from other agencies, other utilities throughout the country that are experiencing similar issues. And we constantly working with them, with MDE, with all of our other partners to find out other alternatives for how we can participate and collect that information.
Any insights into what those alternatives might be from other water utilities?
Yeah, I think it's still too early right now. Our big focus is getting this information out there to the public so those that can participate can start participating. From there, we'll actually start to see those numbers start to come in, and then from there we can plan ahead for moving forward.
Jump to the banner.
Over here.
Yeah.
City Council held their preliminary vote last night on inclusionary housing bills. Finance Department came out basically opposing those and warning about potential financial difficulties. Would you veto those bills if the council pushes them through in the next couple of weeks?
Well, Adam, I think the first thing is that we know that inclusionary housing is a great idea and something that we need more of to help address the serious levels of inequity we see not just in Baltimore but across the country. And I want to be very clear that my administration wholeheartedly supports the vision of inclusion and affordable housing in Baltimore City. And what I am dedicated to doing is transformative approaches that promote that inclusivity, but also acknowledging the critical role that affordable housing plays in fostering vibrant equitable communities. My administration will continue to work with with our concerns with the council, should they be willing, ahead of next Monday's meeting. And I don't talk about vetoes because beforehand, because I would just assume that we'll be able to make and work out those concerns before the meeting. We won't have any discussion about veto until that they may or may not come. But my hope is that folks who agree on an issue can work out details, small details, and move forward.
Son.
Oh, thank you. Mayor Scott, regarding tomorrow's water governance task force, some members have indicated a preference for a regional water authority. Where do you stand? I believe you touched on that before, but where do you stand, and what attributes would you like to see in a new water authority beyond the city retaining control of its assets?
Well, I think that if we get to that point, and we'll be very clear again about this, right? When you look at other authorities across the country, whether it be D.C., whether it be Detroit, the place where it has been, not only retains ownership of the system, but also has the command of that authority and board in a way to make sure that the city's interests are always going to be heard. So any authority would have to meet those standards for me as well. Kenzie?
We've done some recent reporting about some previous affidavits and search warrants that we obtained regarding the link between Safe Streets employees and BGF dating back to 2010. What do you say to taxpayers who are concerned about the possible link between this street gang in Baltimore and this program funded by the government that's supposed to prevent violence from happening?
What I'll say, Mackenzie, what I always say, no matter who it is, right? If they're doing that kind of activity, whether they're a police officer, whether they're a DPW worker, whether they work at the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, anybody, any individual that has those kind of ties will be dealt with through law enforcement. We've seen that with BPD. We've seen that with Safe Streets. We've seen that with other agencies. It's about the individuals. We will hold those individuals responsible, period. But what we will not do, right? If a hospital has 2 doctors go rogue and do things, we don't go to that hospital and say you should close the whole hospital down, right? You would never do that to Johns Hopkins or Sinai. We're not going to allow this to happen. We didn't do it for BPD with the Gun Trace Task Force. We're going to focus on those individuals and allow those who are doing the things the right way to be the ones that we're focused on, while anybody who's doing the wrong thing is held accountable.
Quick follow-up to that. Do you think that it's possible that taxpayer dollars are landing in the hands of gang members?
Mackenzie, I think that what we should say about that is we know what's possible. What's true is what's possible. And that's the only thing. The facts will come out in cases. You know, I'm not going to talk about an open federal investigation, but anybody that's caught doing wrong, whether it's you, me, or anybody else, is going to be brought to justice under my administration.
Jump to WBA over here.
Mr. Mayor, you're coming up on your 3-year mark in your first term here. How do you assess your job performance over the past 3 years, heading into the re-election year, and convincing voters that you should have a second term?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. Actually, you asked me that last year too. Yeah, thank you. Just thought about that. I was like, this is like deja vu. I think that we have to do a job of understanding, right? When I took office on December 8th of 2020, city employees were still doing their timesheets by hand. No one knew what the world was going to be like. We were in the midst of the worst of the pandemic. Systems were on the brink of collapse, in addition to us still having the issues that we have with violence. And what we've been able to do is shepherd us through that. Folks need to be reminded that I shepherded us through the pandemic and did that to the point where Baltimore is seen as one of the top cities for how we handle the pandemic, right? We started to do that work of investing in city government infrastructure that had been ignored for far, far too long, modernizing those systems so that they talk, so that when our GPSs and DPW trucks, something that we should have been done decades ago. And when you think about building the infrastructure that we now have to deal with the issue of violent crime, I set out the goal of having us reduce homicides by 15%. Currently, we're almost at 20, right? Those are the kind of things that we have to do. Record levels of investments into our school system, opening recreation centers, not closing them as many of the folks that came before me did. In fact, opening centers that they had closed to provide opportunities. When you see the things that happen in Cahill, when you see Tawanda Rec Center reopen, when you see Boat Check, later today we're going to be talking about building a brand new rec center right on Fulton Avenue in West Baltimore. That's the kind of thing that they can see from me, in addition to us being able to reduce homicide, taking all these guns off the streets of Baltimore. The lowest unemployment level in the history of Baltimore City happened this summer under my watch.
WJZ or WMAR? Right. Go back to that.
So going back to last night's city council hearing, your finance department had some pretty strong warnings about a $100 million structural budget deficit for FY25. How concerned are you about that, and what avenues do we have to plug that forward?
Well, you know, I'm always concerned, but Adam, this is my 17th year in City Hall. I was here during the Great Recession, and I was here obviously through the pandemic. So we know that we'll get through it. But what you're always going to get from me, and what I ask our fabulous budget director, Laura Lawson, to do is be real with people and know that we're going to have to make tough choices, but we're also going to have to go through what we did before, another 10-year financial plan for the fiscal plan for the city of Baltimore to make sure that we're saving and making strong decisions to put us in a better fiscal position. Because if we didn't do that 10 years ago in 2013, that 100 million might be 200 or 300 million. And we're going to have to make some tough decisions, but we want to be honest and open with the council about that and be able to have that conversation with them so that we are budgeting in a fiscally responsible way and being open and transparent with our taxpayers. I'm always concerned when we have budget deficits like that, but I've been around for ones a lot larger than 100 million, so I know we'll make it through.
Two follow-ups on that. So just are there specific avenues to plug that hole? And then related to that?
Well, we'll go, oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, just related question. So MORP has said publicly several times that we might see reallocations of ARPA money coming next year. Could we see some ARPA money used to plug that?
We're not ready to talk about how we're going to do that. Everything's going to be on the table to make sure we do it. But anything that we do under my administration is going to be done in a very fiscally responsible way so that it's not pushing things down the road.
Thank you.
In regard to the over $200,000 payout the city just made because of the actions of a former city employee regarding sexual assault and harassment, what do you think the city could do to better vet employees, particularly those who have resigned and then been rehired by the city, to prevent similar situations from happening? And secondarily, I also noticed that the plaintiff was named, and I'm sure it was by, I don't know if it was by accident, it seems like it was by accident. Is that typical protocol for the city, and do you feel like that should continue, and what actions could be taken to make sure that doesn't happen? Yeah,
because this is a sexual assault one, this is one that I think we already talked with, if you saw me whispering to the solicitor during the meeting, that's what I was talking to her about, was like, hey, we should look to see if we can redact names for the sexual assault ones. We do put the names of both when it's like when the police involved ones or something like that. So I'll just start there. That's already been done. I do also want to just follow up and let you know that you heard the explanation during the meeting, but this person in 2009, right, went through something like this, was able to get their job back because of, we know what happens, right? When you're talking about sexual assault, many times that someone that's been victimized doesn't often want to step up and go through that trauma again. It was unfortunate, but I can't speak to what they did back in 2009, but I know now that the HR department has a very robust program, and even after being briefed about this, I asked the Director of Human Resources, Director Herbert, to look at our practices. We do have to follow the negotiated policies with our labor union, so that's how this individual was able to get, civil service was able to get his job back, because if you go through a process and you're not able to prove that, then legally the city can't deny that person their job back. But we have to make sure that everyone knows that if you see something like this, you should be letting people know, and it's up to also supervisors and other individuals to make sure that they're holding people accountable. Now, of course, this happened in 2018, almost 5 years ago, and we're happy now to be able to push things in a different way. And again, just feeling so very sorry for the victim or anybody that has to go through something like that.
Last question to toss.
How can residents request the Clean Core to come to their neighborhood?
So the Clean Core neighborhoods were determined by the data. These are the neighborhoods that you see here that have the overwhelming percentage of 301 requests for illegal dumping or high grass and weeds, alley cleaning, vacant lots. And when you see which neighborhoods were chosen, right, these are Penn North, Harlem Park, Carrollton Ridge, Broadway East, 4x4, Darley Park, and actually one is actually missing. Westport is missing from the map. These are the areas that I spend most of my time in when we're doing cleanups and things, because these are the hardest hit. So we're going to continue to support those neighborhoods, thus allowing DPW to focus in the other areas. Thank you all.
I have one